Hello, everyone. This is Hugh Smiley. Welcome to the Substack. And we have a series of blogs and poems sometimes, very interesting interviews with fascinating people from all walks of life um, around issues, important issues in the world. We're looking for a nonpartisan voice, which is also reading reality and dealing with real life issues without necessarily pointing the finger and taking sides always, but looking at the bigger picture, jumping out of the system to observe the patterns in society and in the human psyche as well, and the science of human relationships. So I would like to introduce you to a very special guest that we have today. Oh, but first, thank you for subscribing. And if you would like to support my work here on Substack, there's a little button that you could click if you feel so inclined, if you feel generous, uh, where you could upgrade your subscription to a paid subscription. And so I would appreciate that. And however, you're most welcome to continue as a free subscriber. So I have James Offuh today from Cote d'Ivoire, or Ivory Coast, as we say in English, in Africa. And I've known Offuh for 7 or 8 years now. We worked very closely together on an amazing project called NACAD, the New Andalus Center for Authentic Dialogue, and have partaken many times in Zoom conversations and dialogues. And so I would like to welcome you today, Offuh. It's wonderful
Thank
to have you here in the Substack, and I'm so excited about listening to some of your activities and your perspectives of the world today.
you.
Would you like to just tell people a little bit first before we dive in about what you do, around peace building and community building, things like that, just to give a little bit of a identity, I suppose, for the viewers.
Thank you so much, my friend Hugh, and thank you for inviting me to your program. Um, my name is James Offuh, as you know, a father of four age school children. I am a peace builder, a peacemaker, a community development civic educator, a founder of a nonprofit by denomination United for Peace Against Conflict International. You can see my logo on my
Beautiful.
head.
Wow, it looks like an aura,
And
spiritual aura. My goodness.
in abbreviation, IFPACI.
If I see.
Um, our mission for the past 12, 13 years we have in existence is to equip young people with the communication and the leadership skills necessary to address the root cause of hatred, discrimination, and conflict violence with the notion of sustained dialogue. That is to say, giving my ears from earth to the other in a rational, authentic way to explore each other's story life narratives without critics, accusation, or condemnation. That has been so helpful in my community peace building in a post-war environment to really bridge the gaps of mistrust, alienation, and bigotry,
Yeah.
hate, discrimination. That has been so creative. So this is exactly what I do.
Yes,
And
beautiful.
again, I support children's mentorship. I initiated a community library The main focus of this community project in form of a library called Transformative Peace Library is to help children grow their social emotional intelligence with life skill learnings. This library is a, a type of an alternative to children going to playstations. Now I created an initiative I called a book station
Uh-huh.
over PlayStation for
Uh-huh.
them to their social emotional learnings.
So what does that look like in real, do they meet in a building or is it online or are there sessions or classes once a week kind of thing or
Yeah, we have sections in a week.
yeah.
In a week, we can have uh, three consecutive space for kids to come and meet
Mm.
with people they
Yeah.
fear from their childhood. Taking,
Uh-huh.
for example, like children living with albinism,
With what?
albino,
Oh,
um,
albino. There are
albino,
albinos. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
albino. So that has been a very social complication.
Right.
But because of our actions of socializing with people with albinism, with those without, it has really lowered that negative stereotype.
Yes.
Negative stereotype has been transcended.
Great.
Seeing the other as equal human has been so much emphasized, and that has been so helpful in building the relationship among kids and learning together.
Beautiful. Now you mentioned post-war. You know, there are certain dynamics that are worldwide, um, and then each country or each community even has its own specific variations of those dynamics. So in Cote d'Ivoire, for example, has there been a war, a civil war of some kind in your past that you have has led to you working with people after to help mend the rifts and so on, develop authentic dialogue?
Yeah, there is two variations of wars that I have observed
Right.
in Cote d'Ivoire: political military war
Okay.
and tribal ethnic
Ah,
war.
yes.
So these two different wars has been a kind of a reoccurrence in my country, Cote d'Ivoire. Um, Looking at the political climate and environment since 22 and the 2010 to 2011, we had the post-electoral human slaughter and having some political antagonisms with the oppositions from
Yes.
different angles.
Mm.
And that has resulted to what we experienced as post-electoral human slaughter in 2010, 2011. And coming to at the at the eve of that same political military war come a tribal ethnical war too that was fueled by this political military war because the two tribal groups are pro to these two major political opponents.
Yes. Okay.
So that fed that tribal ethnic war. So the tribal ethnic war was like the the if I will call it the the outcome of the political military war.
Yes. Well, I
You know,
remember the several years ago in Rwanda, that terrible genocide that took place, a real tragedy, and but it was caused largely as the aftermath legacy of colonialism, in which one of the major tribes, the Tutsis, I believe, were favored by the British overlords to the detriment of the larger Hutu tribe.
Mm.
And so there were always some antagonism and competition for jobs and favors and so on. And then it reached a point where it just blew up, and over 1 million people were murdered and from both sides. It was a real tragedy. So I'm wondering if in Cote d'Ivoire as well, part of that antagonism between the two major tribes was related to the aftermath of colonialism. Can you
Uh,
connect that, or maybe not? Maybe it was something completely different.
I I would say no. I
Okay.
would say no. Um, because one thing leads to the other, but there was no evidence to
Yeah.
support the hypothesis.
Okay.
No evidence to support this hypothesis,
Right.
but what I can say is that um, the ripple effect of bad governance can lead to the eruption
Ah,
of
right.
certain ethnic,
Yes.
tribal grievances,
Yes.
because as it has to do with the people from the Diokwe in the east part of Cote d'Ivoire. It was majorly a land dispute.
Uh-huh.
A a land dispute. This is kind of the hypothesis that we have
Yeah.
that is the cause of the ethnic tribal war. But it has deepened from the political military grievances,
Yes.
you know, just like I said, that the two opponents are pro to the opposing major
Yes.
political
Yeah.
party.
Uh-huh.
So you can know that the ripple effect of that leads
Absolutely. Even here in North
it,
America, where
yeah.
we have pretty well-established democracies for well over 100 years, United States and Canada, there's such a polarization in politics, and this has a reflection in culture, and the economy, and it's getting to the point where a lot of people are afraid that there could be a civil war in the United States between the left and the right, and so it can definitely emerge, and then it can be worsened by political decisions and so on. So thank you for that update. Now, just sort of changing the subject a little bit, back to mentorism, which you mentioned. I remember when I first met you, it was through Len and Libby Trobman from San Francisco, who worked for many years, bless their hearts, on bringing people together from different backgrounds, specifically Jewish and Palestinian or Arab. And in their home, they would have, I think, biweekly meetings with food and everything and music, but where Arabs and Jews and Muslims, and Palestinians and Israelis would come together and listen to each other. And when you mentioned how important that is to have the ears, I think you said, to listen to another person's story without immediately jumping to assumptions or conclusions or criticisms. It's such a an important part of that science and art of authentic dialogue. Could you just, and then through them you joined our NACAD, New Andalus Center for Authentic Dialogue. Could you just speak for a moment about your relationship with the Trobmans and how that sort of helped you, like a stepping stone to what is now a flourishing career as a peace
Mhm.
builder and facilitator?
Yeah, I think that growing up in my aspirations in the past um, 13 years, um, and having no academic background on peace studies and conflict resolution,
Right.
even though I have that aspiration to read peace studies, conflict resolution, I
Yeah.
got a professional admission,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't pursue it immediately because as a father of four age schools children, financial handicap, I was not able to pursue that in that moment.
Right.
Yeah, so I can say that my aspirations was geared up into achieving my goals that I believe in myself when I came in contact with the traumas. So the traumas was like a ladder
Mhm.
for me to see clearly about what I'm called to do. Um, some people may call it superstitious, or some people may call it maybe being self-censorship, maybe seeing yourself maybe a special human called by God. But
Like a kind
I
of a destiny or a path of service that opens up and
absolutely.
yeah.
So I see my career in peace work as a vocation,
Mm.
and I will call it also a ministry,
Yes.
what I'm wired to do,
Yeah.
and what I don't see any retirement age in this journey. It's something of a lifetime, because something I'm called to do. It's just a profession, but a vocation, you know.
Well, it's a marriage of, I mean, there's such a need for people like yourself for this vocation, and you seem to be, from a young age, predisposed. And these two forces come together. It's sort of like myself as a psychotherapist. People often would say, well, you're going to have work for many years to come because the psychological issues of humanity are not going to go away in the next generation or so. So, probably for several generations, there will be many psychotherapists and psychologists well employed. But likewise, the need for, to have a balanced mind, a worldview, and principles, which you mentioned faith, which may come from religion or philosophy or spirituality, but to have a kind of a moral compass that can help to guide the intellect and the intelligence in the way that we, and I include myself more or less in your vocation, because I studied peace and conflict studies at University of Toronto, um, in the way that we uh, develop resonances and communication channels with those populations that we hope to work with. So I remember once I had a conversation with you, and as I often ask people in this little interview, was there a time in your life, like a pivotal point, where you had an insight or an aha experience that helped to guide your direction? And you mentioned something about the barber shop. Do you remember that? Could you just briefly share that? Because it was such a beautiful, powerful, but sweet story.
Yeah, that pivotal point was, I call it's a spiritual encounter, it's a revelation.
Right.
So not everybody believe in this process.
Uh-huh.
Not everybody believes in this process, and I respect that. But personally, my encounter in that spiritual journey unfolded something I see today
Uh-huh.
as reality,
Yes.
not just hypothesis, but a reality, a tested journey, proven, experienced.
Right.
So, um, meditation is part of my spiritual development and my emotional uh, intelligence uh, practice, you know, and it has helped me really to really uncover this answer: who am I? Why am I wired what is my role in the environment I find myself, and how do I achieve what I call fulfillment, meaning, and integration, you know. So I think that not just for survival, but for well-being, for meaning, you see. So that pivotal point is my encounter in my barber shop, aftermath of the post-lateral human slaughter. You know, we ran from my home. My family have to refuge in my barber shop. So I remember in that early morning meditation, I'm always open to 5 a.m. in the morning, the cool of that night, if more early morning. As I kneel down to make my meditations, my contemplative reflections with the divine and what my purpose of the day should be, I heard a still small voice behind me. And that still small voice was so clear that I can't ignore it. And that still small voice said to me, "Unite communities for peace." I opened my eyes, I look around. The voice said again, "Be in your position of meditation. I will speak to you again." After a few seconds, the voice came again. He said, "To save humanity from destruction." Then I bring the two phrases together. It becomes a clear statement, a mandate.
Yes.
It becomes a mandate. It becomes a mandate. Unite community for peace to save humanity from destruction. Then I replied, I said, I got no prior academic background on how to make peace.
Mm,
So how am I going to save? What do I have to save humanity?
right.
You know, this is too big, you know.
Yeah.
I remember the voice said to me, I am the God of all knowledge. I am the omniscient God,
Omniscient.
omniscient God. He said, I will send men from far. They will locate me and they will teach me all I need to know now. That was when I have not come into contact with the traumas, you know.
Yes.
So
And
that
this is in your father's barber shop.
that
Right?
was in my barber shop
Yeah. Uh-huh.
that morning. So that was it, you know.
How old were
When
you at that time, Offuh?
sorry,
How old were you at that time?
I think I should be around, I think 40 years by
Wow.
then.
Very
Yeah,
young. Yeah. Yeah.
it was,
Wow.
I think, 40 years then,
Yeah.
you know. So um, it was so much a compelling mandate, as if that I felt some kind of obligation. I felt some kind of obligation, and I start seeing clearly the situation and why change must come, positive change. But who should be the bridge to that change when you don't have the assets you have proven that can be a support to you in terms of
Yes.
resources, tools,
Uh-huh.
techniques,
Yeah.
strategy, even people or group or a community around you that can be supportive for you to get that vision implemented.
You
I
know,
was just,
sometimes when an individual does not have the formal training or education in a specific academic speciality. In a way, it starts with a more pure vessel because many that follow the academic route um, become biased in regard to certain uh, understandings that have developed over time. They become like in a religion almost. They become rigid and fanatical and closed to new ideas. So in a sense, because you were young and you didn't have that opportunity to go to university and all that kind of stuff, it may have allowed you to become um, more pure-hearted in a way and pure-minded. So you had that initial personal revelation, as you called it, like, wow, God is speaking to me, and and it impressed you. It had a deep impact on you, and then the rest was just building on that rather than some uh, uh, ideology or academic position that's handed to you from a group of eggheads. You know what I mean? It may be a benefit in the long run, and of course you're receiving the education now, and you're making up for lost time in a big way.
Yeah, um, I think that when we look at the prophets in the Bible, tell me which university they went. Tell me the university they graduated from.
That's
You
right.
know, there are many great scientists today that we celebrate in the world of science that never entered any university. They became university to themselves
Mm.
and knowledge
Yes,
that university is professing as a discipline.
yes.
See, so I think that there is a spiritual dimension of knowing. There is a spiritual dimension of knowing, and I don't disagree on science or history or art that shapes human perspective. I don't disagree on that. All these different way of knowing is a way to search for reality and to perceive reality. So I have respect for every human being that have built his perspective based on history, based on art, religion, science, and also spirituality, just like myself. So, but however, in my own account, I think that evidence has proven that my spiritual journey of discovering myself is authentic and it has been so credible, proven, creative, impactful in my own marriage, household, community, family, extended family, locally, grassrootsly, internationally. So I think that that calling in the barber shop has rippled so much that nobody today doubts that what I said about that spiritual encounter was just a myth.
Yes.
It was not a myth. It was a proven encounter that changed who I was then to the identity who I am today. So,
It was interesting that the principle of when we talk about divine attributes, whatever a person's understanding of the creator is, and nobody really knows for sure, but everybody has a different capacity to imagine. Uh, but there's the will aspect, power and will, and then there's the love and wisdom aspect, and then another aspect could be active intelligence and organization, and they're all important. They're all part of what the creator is, sort of like
mm,
Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva in the Hindu Trinity.
mhm,
Um, but your mandate, as you said, you got your marching orders, right? At a young age, just puberty almost. And it was so powerful. That's like the will aspect, purpose. So you had a purpose installed in uh, your neural system, in your intelligence, in your heart, even in your understanding. And maybe you didn't understand it all at that time, but it was planted inside you so powerfully that the understanding, the the pieces of the puzzle that you needed to learn came to you, or you kind of intuitively sought them out. So that, as you say, the process of becoming who you are now as a person, but also in your career as a peace builder, it's been a very organic process and authentic. So congratulations for that. You know, so many people through meditation and other means are longing for that, being able to know themselves, their authentic selves. And that word is used so often nowadays just because there's so much inauthenticity in the world, so much fake news. But people are desperate to find what's real, what really is real for them, and how that personal reality can also align with or integrate with the bigger need of humanity so that we
Mm,
can find some way to serve, to make a difference in the
mm,
world, to help the world be a little bit better in our own way.
yeah.
So before we run out of time, we could talk for hours, I'm sure, but I try to keep these a little bit shorter side so that people will be able to watch to the end, hopefully. Um, could you just say a little bit about, I know that there are conferences that you're being invited to take part in and to give talks, and a little bit about your website, which is called United for Peace Against Conflict International, UFPASI, right?
Yeah.
UFPASI, yeah. Can you just tell us a little bit, what are you up to these days? What's ringing your bell or inspiring you most?
Yeah. I think um, to measure or to track the ripple effect of that revelation of 13 years ago is that people find value in my sharing, that they invite me to bring in my voice as a change maker. So I don't hesitate to respond positively because that is my own contribution to make the world a better place. Yeah, I will be speaking on EduNet platform forum for Charter for Compassion.
Charter for Compassion. Okay.
Yeah, the founder of Charter for Compassion is Karen Armstrong, and have some wonderful executives that are so great, Marilyn, Merida, and so on and so forth. So I can say that I will be speaking on peace leadership model. Yeah,
Well, we have
that,
go ahead.
sorry.
So, no, you go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be speaking on peace leadership model as a principle and as a practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, we have a little another little organization, you might call it, very informal. We call it APUD, APUD, which means Africanada
Mm,
Unity Peace Dialogue. And it's a group of friends from different African countries, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Cameroon, Uganda, and Canada. And we meet once in a while on Zoom, and we'll pick a theme and have a dialogue about it. And I think the very first one we had was peace building in your community, which is very much a theme of your work. So for the average person in a community in your country or any country really, who is interested in how can I help to build my community in a positive way with the ideals of peace and justice and authentic dialogue. What would you suggest? How do they start? I mean, the ideas are great. They're like your logo there. The wings are coming out the sides of your head, like through your ears. Very lofty ideals. But when you bring them down to earth on the everyday small town, small city level, how does an individual start to practice this peace building in his community or unity building?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Uh, Literally, peace is a behavior, you know, and building peace is you are literally saying building behavior.
Okay,
And if you want to build behavior, you must be one. You must be that behavior you want to build.
okay,
If you don't know if you have that behavior in you, you need to learn about yourself.
right.
Self-awareness is the first step in the journey of peace building or community building.
Uh-huh.
You can't step into a community you don't know
Right.
without knowing yourself.
Okay. Very good
Self
advice. Yeah.
Self-awareness is the first step
Okay.
into discovery
Right.
about a community.
So it's sort of like there's a whole literature of books, and workshops on developing good habits or breaking bad habits, addictions, and so on. And they say just like a bad habit requires many iterations to become powerful.
Mhm.
Likewise, in order to create a new habit, which is positive, it takes a certain number of days or weeks or months or whatever, and iterations or repetitions. So I like what you say that you have to know yourself as well as possible. It's a matter of degree, but have a kind of a unity. As you said, you have to be one. So you have to sort of have your head and your heart and your emotions and your physical body aligned as one personality, perhaps guided by the higher essence or the soul. So, and you have to know your community. In other words, be informed of what you're dealing with. What are the racial and cultural dynamics of the specific place where you live in your town? So
Mm.
then what would be a peace behavior or a community building behavior? Once you've got the preparation all taken care of and you're ready to take the next step, which would be to actually do something which represents or not just symbolizes, but represents in a practical way peace building or justice building or unity building in your specific community, what would that look like? What would be the step?
I think purpose purpose is the key. You must
Purpose.
have a purpose. And when I mean having a purpose, you must um, have a set of goals.
Right.
You have to have a set of goals. And just like I said, you must know the environment of your community, you know, the dynamics of your community. You have to be able to analyze to understand the deficit and the gifts in your
Yes.
community.
Yeah.
And when you are able to assemble those dynamics, then you can be sure you are setting a framework about intervention.
And what would that
You know,
intervention look like? What's an example? Maybe from your own community, even.
um, I, all this whole lot of setups or settings in terms of community intervention is about problem solving,
Right.
problem solving.
Uh-huh.
Um, what is the problem that you want to contribute solution?
Okay.
And can you measure your solution as adequate, helpful, to the problem of your community?
Okay,
Do you have?
excuse me, I'm going to jump in. If you- Sorry for interrupting, but you mentioned, as you can see, I'm trying to narrow down a kind of a practical manifestation of a spiritual or philosophical idea. Um, you did mention in your own community, in your country, I guess, the albino population, which I think
Mm,
perhaps in Africa it's more common than here. But
mm,
I remember reading how albinos, people that have no pigment in their skin, are
mm,
terribly persecuted and even murdered, and sometimes a lot of superstition. If you have a finger cut off from an albino, it's a lucky, terrible. So you mentioned that you had a program that was helping dialogue between albino and non-albino groups, subgroups. How did that, how did you get them together, or did you all meet together, or what did it look like physically?
yeah, I just like I said, um, technically, technically, I have always emphasized storytelling,
Ah,
you know,
yeah,
storytelling as a tool,
right.
listening as a techniques,
Mm.
you know. So these two elements are so creative when you want to bridge a divide or a deep-rooted division among people, or when you want to bridge opposing viewpoints on a particular subject matter. So I think that fear of the other and ignorance of the other has been proven, it have been proven, uh, 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 have been proven that storytelling and listening can serve
Ah,
as a very transformative uh, tool
exactly.
to
Thank you.
transcend that um, division,
Yes,
transcend that fear and ignorance of the other.
right.
So I think this is practically what I have used as
Yeah.
a very
Thank
uh,
you. That is a great example, storytelling and listening, and it coming back full circle to the beginning of the interview when I mentioned Len and Libby Traubman. They also took part in some of our Zoom meetings around authentic dialogue. And one of the exercises that they would administer in their home and also on our Zoom sessions was people would work in pairs, and person A would speak for 3 minutes, and the other person, the partner, person B, would not say a word, total listening, and then Libby would have the bell, and after 3 minutes, she would keep her eye on the clock, and so person A had 30 seconds to finish off what they were saying, and then person B would ask one question or two questions that would help person A to go deeper into their story. So they had to be listening and understanding. And then again, person A would have another 3 minutes to go deeper. And then it would reverse. So it was a wonderful practice in developing those skills of deep listening, total attention, sincere interest and attention, and then having a kind of a feedback, and then developing those behaviors that embody the principles of peace building. And I know they did it especially with the, as I mentioned, the Jewish Palestinian or the Jewish Arab populations, but it could be with any groups. Well, my friend, just before we bid adieu, as you say in French, French is common in Cote d'Ivoire, right? Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire. Um, would you like to below the video, both on Substack, and it will be migrated to the YouTube channel as well. There's I'll be able to put in a short explanation as well as a link to your website, perhaps, or a conference. What would you like people to have as a follow-up contact?
Mm. Well, having my LinkedIn's, add,
LinkedIn?
yeah, LinkedIn's,
Okay.
add to your subtract and
Subtrack.
Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
usually,
you're building your own Subtrack station?
hopefully,
Great.
hopefully,
Great.
hopefully,
It's a wonderful
hopefully.
place where you can share some of your writings and ideas, and I will definitely recommend you to my subscribers, and we could cross-pollinate perhaps.
That's all right.
Okay.
That's all right.
So your
Yeah.
LinkedIn, your Substack, and what about the website? Is that what
Yeah.
it's called? United for Peace Against Conflict?
Yes. My main website is under construction
Oh, okay.
because I'm bringing, but I have a trauma's website that is always
Ah,
with my story that you can always add.
excellent. Okay. Great.
Has about 18 different activity local building stories at different levels that
Great.
can really be
Great.
a link to people to explore more.
That'll give people a good sense of the kind of activities that you're involved with. Well, thanks so much, Offuh, for making the time today. Uh, I know it's hot over there. It's a couple of 4 hours later. Cote d'Ivoire, yeah. And I love the logo that behind you. That's really beautiful. It's very
Thank you
inspiring.
so
The
much.
Dove of Peace. Yeah. So
Mm.
perhaps in the future we'll have you back again, and we'll talk about some other themes, further themes.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me today.
Okay. Come
Yourself for the
again. Adieu. À la
bye.
prochaine. Bye bye.
Bye.
Hey, there's a little friend. Hi. Is that your son?
My daughter.
Your daughter? Oh, sorry. Sorry, it's hard to say. Hi, how are you?
Good evening.
Good, good, good. Nice to see you. We're just saying bye. So we'll see you another time.
Yeah, bye.
Bye bye.
Yeah.